Welcome to another episode of Educating Homebuyers, the podcast. I'm your host, Brady Hay, and my mortgage team has over 9 years of mortgage experience here in Des Moines, Iowa. Whether you're buying your first home, upgrading, investing, or simply just curious about the market, this show is all about helping you and future homebuyers feel informed, educated, and comfortable as you take your next step. Each week, I sit down with real estate professionals, past clients, and local experts to unpack real stories, real advice, and what you actually need to know when buying a home today. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today's guest is a leader whose work helps transition people through some of life's biggest and financial and emotional decisions. She's built and leads a full-service real estate company in the Des Moines Metro that doesn't just sell homes. It helps clients build long-term wealth and feel supported through every stage of their real estate journey. She's been featured in national business publications, has done personally some flip homes, and owns short-term rental properties. She holds multiple real estate designations and has helped hundreds of families buy, sell, and build and invest in property. Bringing strategic market insight, fierce negotiation skills, and commitment to client education and protection, she's known for helping people feel seen, heard, and confident in their decisions. Kelsey Russell, welcome to Educating Homebuyers.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having
me
on.
Excited to have a conversation today.
Yeah.
So context for you, and I know we talked about this off camera, but how I always like to start all these episodes is give everybody a background. Who are you? How'd you get into real estate? What's that look like for you?
Yeah. So I got into real estate. I'm actually just starting my 10th year. So it's been a wild ride, but it's just been great along the way. Now we're up to 5 different team members, and we have 2 assistants on the team. And then have sold over 550 homes. So how I got into it, I went to school for architecture, landscape architecture specifically, and really loved, really since I was a little kid, it was like building blocks and playing with those types of toys and things. So I've always loved like the designing spaces side of it. But it really it ties in the 3 things I love most. So I love to educate people on the financial side and, what's your bottom dollar look like? What's your portfolio or investment strategy look like? So I get to do that. I get to do sales and, build people, build culture with the team, and also just, meet with different people every day. I love connecting and I love building relationships. So it just kind of molded all the things I love and found that, and the rest is history.
What was your exposure? So you started in you said architectural?
Yeah. So I went to school for architecture. I was in the design program at Iowa State. The goal was to do architecture. Got into the landscape architecture program. So did that for 2 years and then switched to business.
Got it. So then after or post, at what point, I guess, did you decide all right, I'm going to get my license to be a real estate agent? Honestly,
job shadowing. I job shadowed a bunch with architecture firms, landscape architecture firms. And then I realized I love the design side. I love the financing side, and how do we put together money and investments and people. And so then I job shadowed financial planners and real estate. And then I just chose real estate because, I probably could have done either, but real estate was really, I love conceptual mapping and planning custom builds, things like that. So it just really had it all.
So is that leaned into a big part of the way you've grown your business is through new construction? Do you love helping people with that process? And then what does that look like, I guess? So if you were a client, if a client called you tomorrow and said, hey, I'm thinking about building a house, what kind of guidance do you give them there?
Yeah. So it really starts with, do you care more about the lot or the floor plan or the builder, right? Because there are 3 very different types of people. They either want a wooded lot on 3 acres and they're really specific about the feel that they want to live in and where they want to put a house. Other people are very functionality based and how it is, my layout in my kitchen going to feel. How's that going to work in my home? And then other people, it's I love this builder. I've seen their product. I've walked through an open and I really want to work with them. Or I love this Pinterest board and how do I build that in Des Moines? So it's really just an initial consult of fine tuning. Do you know what's going on the financial side, fine-tuning just the buying a house side of things, and then the custom build side, it's what's your preference of those 3, and then from there, we go look at lots or we look at different builders, and that's one thing I've worked with almost every that's unfair to say almost every builder in Des Moines, but several of the top,
of course,
builders in different price points. And some are very boutique style where you're picking out, and people think that's a really great thing, but it's really personal preference. Like some are more of a production level builder, and I actually built with more of a production level builder where I'm getting to, and I represent a similar one where you get to pick things and you get to be specific and make it your dream house, but you also have everything in one roof. They have a showroom. They have things you can look at and, feel things, get the texture, put things together. And then there are other people where they're like, I want to go to every component. I want to go to the cabinet manufacturer and pick out the exact cabinet. I want to go to the quartz and the stone person. And most people don't like that.
I was going to say, side note, that sounds so horrible.
Yes.
Like having to start from scratch and discover everything on your own it seems like it would be a lot.
And that's the biggest thing. Like I always say you're going to make 3,000 decisions when you build a house plus, and that's with just a production level builder, because like there are things even down to like the grout color. Like I remember I spent a week picking out like paint between two different shades and a grout color. And then I got to a point I'm like, what am I doing? This is so...
What if you hate it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I will say a lot of people I love to work with on the custom side, because if needed, I'll bring in an interior designer and kind of pay for that service for them to have that if they have kind of like a really elevated style.
Of course.
But for the most part, like I have a pretty good eye, and I have to stop myself from designing your entire house because people will be like, what do you think, Kelsey?
So when do you move in?
What do you think? And I'm like, okay, I can't pick everything in your home, but I really do love that side of it. And so, your realtor will help with that. And then the other thing I really like is conceptual mapping, or like, bubble diagramming of if you're building a house from scratch, that is such a hard thing to do well. So you need to work with somebody that knows how to look at the functionality of a house and the layouts and what's going to make the most sense for you, but also for resale. Because a lot of people, they want something really specific. And it's like, if you're going to live here forever and pass it down to like, a child or generationally, great. But a lot of people don't think about what could kill us on resale. And that's another big thing we talk about with new builds is, adding a gas line to the garage, the deck, the range, even if you don't like gas stoves. Most people want them. So there's these ideas that, there's the 3,000 decisions. There's these ideas that are deal breakers, and it's just knowing those things and talking about them.
And a lot of times people don't even probably know the questions to ask, right?
Right.
So identifying that, and I have to imagine that like even one lot versus the next is going to determine whether you can make a layout work or not. And I can't imagine the amount of questions and like you said, decisions that you have to make to navigate that. So that's really cool. You've done some flip properties yourself. What does that look like in comparison to a new construction? How would you say that those two sides of the business differ?
So I've done one flip home. I did like a mid-century modern black home in Des Moines, and that was amazing. I will say, make sure you have a really good general contractor or GC helping you with that. So I'm one of those people that when it's looking at things for clients, having the right people, like I'm big on, I don't know everything, but I have the right person and I have the right network to figure things out. So the flip side, it's basically just knowing your numbers and knowing a good contractor and how to look at the after repair value and everything. And also like the big thing I look at for people with flips is holding costs and when are you planning to sell? So everyone looks at, okay, it might take me 3 months to finish this house. But what are you then selling in winter? So should you try and finish it sooner and pay the contractor a little more, or should you drag it out and not be the top priority to them in order to sell at a better time? And timing the market's a really big thing people don't think about. But with flip homes, it's like flips and short-term rentals. There's so many different considerations as far as what are the amenities? What are the things that people want? What are the upgrades that are worth it? Because a lot of people just do cosmetic and they skip out on some of the bigger things, like from a flip perspective. And I'm a big believer, like replace the roof, do the big ticket things, the mechanicals that are going to stop a buyer from buying the house potentially or are causing issues right now. And then you can do a lot with paint and like very, minimal, expenses.
Right.
And I think the other thing is people don't think about how expensive it is to do a flip. And then they think carpet and paint is a cheap, easy fix and you can sell it for 20, 30 grand more.
Yeah.
Carpet and paint costs a lot.
Right.
So you have to know your numbers. And it's like very select people I'll work with where they have the cash flow.
Right.
And they have the reserves to do it and do it right.
When I feel like as a novice, uneducated person on that front, I feel like it would be really easy to look at, okay, here's what I could get the home for. And here's what I could sell it for if it was in, A+ condition, right? And you only look at those two things.
Yes.
And then those holding costs and the repairs and all the details, like determining what makes sense to do, what should we leave as is, and every property is going to be different, right? You're going to, you might, if you're looking at a flip, find a property that already has a lot of things that are good and you just need to do a couple things versus a complete gut, right?
Yeah.
So it's identifying like what makes the most sense. And I think those holding costs are a piece that you don't really, most people don't think about. I know when I was like exploring the option a few years ago, like thinking about like whether you're going to pay cash or whether you're going to have a financed home where you have to factor in what are your monthly payments for the 6 months you're going to own this property. Like there's just a lot more to it than just simply, all right, I'm going to buy this place for 50 and I'm going to sell it for 200. Like it's not that simple, right? There's a lot of things that happen between the two, right?
For sure.
So, talk about your short-term rental piece, because that's kind of new, right, on your plate. When did you get into that, or what was your vision behind that?
Within the last 2 years, I started doing the short-term rentals, and the first one I bought in Clear Lake, and that was just, I wanted to have a family home for my family, like to take kids to and to have experiences. So that was more of a, let me trial this. Like pretty much everything I've become really good at with real estate, I just kind of did as a personal experience where I want to know more about how this works for the client. So I wanted a lake house. I knew it was a good investment. And then it's like, how much can I offset the mortgage costs if I'm renting it out when we're not using it?
Sure.
So a lot of the times when I'm looking at short-term rental, it's the mindset of somebody already wants a lake house for their family, or they already want a second property in, it's like offsetting costs you already have. Maybe I have a job where I'm in Kansas City half the time, or and I'm renting an apartment, right? So let's look at, can you buy a condo? Can you buy a property? And then how much can you offset those costs with doing a short-term rental if it's something you already would have done? I don't recommend for short-term rental unless you really know how to manage it yourself, or you have someone managing it that you really trust and you know your numbers really well. If you're trying to like have passive income off of it.
Totally.
So that's just something that the intentionality behind it was get a lake house, see how much I can offset it. Yeah. And then the other thing I'd say with short-term rental people don't think about is if you're self-managing and you're self-furnishing and everything, that's a lot. Like I love, that's joy for me. It's like, let's take this empty house, and the one in Clear Lake sleeps 12. Okay. And the one in Urbandale I have sleeps 17. Okay. So that's a big undertaking to furnish properties of that magnitude for that many guests. Yeah. And then it's down to picking out the right mattresses and putting together the head. So like myself and Chris furnished everything ourselves on both those. So it's probably a 2-month part-time job just to get everything done. What
I would tell you is like somebody who's went and stayed in short-term rentals, the moment you pick something that stinks, whether it's an uncomfortable couch or an uncomfortable bed or ugly decor or whatever it is, then it's a turnoff, right? Yeah. And that is a direct correlation then to future revenue, because the moment you have somebody that comes to have a poor experience and they get a 1-star review or a 2-star review, that's going to impact the more people that are willing to come back. So I can tell you firsthand that I've stayed in places that are like, well, I would never stay here again. This couch stinks. Absolutely. And that's the number one way people pick, right? Yeah. Like that's true with most things in life, but with short-term rentals for sure, like looking at those reviews and just saying, I will never stay here because somebody didn't have XYZ. And that's something that surprised us with the bigger, amenities, or like they sleep more people. Yeah. Is just the things people complain about, like not enough spices in the kitchen. Literally. Or I thought of everything. Like I feel confident saying like this could be your home away from home where you live here for a month plus. Totally. And there are people where they're just never going to, and that's another thing is balancing like cost and benefit of you could go really wild and make it. No doubt. Everything your home has. But it's like, what are those things that one person's going to complain about versus it's like an essential thing. Right. And then just I'm really big on systems. So like having inventory lists, like the first time I probably spend too much time on the systems, but like the first time you do a short-term rental, it's like the entire like SOPs, inventory list, everything we do to make it happen so that
you can just execute the same thing
Yeah.
a second time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I want to know more about your short-term rental. You have one as well that I know
I do,
gets a ton of traction in Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona's an interesting market. You know, we obviously with our Iowa exposure, it's a whole different world. So me being as far away as I am, I have fully trusted that entire process to a management company. And they are a godsend as far as like just being able to help me execute that, right?
Yeah.
Because my vision when I bought it, to be honest, was completely passive. And I will tell you that it is that. I don't have a lot of involvement unless there's a financial decision to be made. But it's interesting, you know, in Arizona, I will tell you that like 2020, 2021, Airbnb was an awesome opportunity down there. And since then, I would tell you that it's become incredibly saturated. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of competition from an Airbnb standpoint in the Scottsdale area specifically. So what we've noticed and learned is that you have to find differences that you can add to your property to give someone a reason to book yours over the alternative. So we've had to pump some money into the home to make it stand out. You know, we've had to add a hot tub. We had to add a putting green. Like when you think about a vacation rental, why would you book a house? And that is for those amenities, right? And those reasons why. And so we've made some financial obligations and incentives into that. And learned the hard way, you know, that there's certain things that you'll spend some money on that don't increase your revenue, you know, and that's a fine line that you talk about there where it's like, okay, well, yeah, this looks really nice when you paint this wall this color, but nobody's going to book it because that wall is a different color, right? So it's like a fine line there of like, I've learned the hard way, like maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But it's a decision you can't take back, right? At the end of the day.
And I think I fully agree with that. And I think you have to decide like what type of experience you're going to be. Like there are some properties that I think get booked solely for the design aspect, but they probably have like both my properties, it was 20 to 25 grand to furnish them.
Yeah.
But those properties that it's because of the design and the aesthetic, like the time, labor, planning, execution of that design aesthetic was probably double what I put into furnishing things. And ours are designed nicely. Yeah. You know, so there's this like fine line of it's like just like with flips, there's this fine line of what do you put in, what do you reserve? And then also like, does that amenity cause you more stress and headache and more money? Because the minute you have a hot tub or a pool, that adds so much maintenance cost and so much just like headache to make sure that it's like perfect and well aligned for the client, because guests are not going to want your hot tub if it's not perfectly clean every single time. Yeah.
Which adds, you know, like you've got the extra layer there. And I'm, again, thankful because my management company takes care of it. But they have basically every time somebody checks out, guess what? Pool company's got to be there. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's up on chlorine, you know, and that's just an increased cost for us as owners. I think one piece that's really important from a short-term rental standpoint that's overlooked is there's a difference between what looks picture nice and what's actually executable, and that clients appreciate when they're there, you know? And so one thing we really prided ourselves in is like our beds are going to be comfortable, which sounds like a really corny thing to like talk about.
That's the number one thing.
The moment you get there and your bed sucks or you have shitty pillows, guess what? Nobody's coming back, right? And I've just experienced what it's like to stay in a property firsthand, and when stuff's uncomfortable, it just ruins the experience. Absolutely. You know, and that's something that like I wouldn't have thought about. Like I would have been like, all right, let's just get something in there. Let's get the doors open and get it booked. But the moment you have a place that's just not comfortable and not appealing to, you know, returning guests and repeat clients, it's going to skew your future business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know. That was a lesson that I learned, and thankfully we were able to buy our property pretty well fully furnished. And so that kind of helped our front, but it's interesting to hear from your perspective, being the one that kind of did the design work. Is there anything you've learned, I guess, since you bought those? Like, is there anything you wish you would have done differently?
Honestly, no. I think the only thing I will say about like a caution on short-term rentals is you have to, if you're going to self-manage and you're going to furnish and design it yourself, you have to love that process, because it is like, that was a test to our relationship more than anything, is just, you know, you have a second full-time job for 2 months, but I love that. Like it's the same way, and I'll relate it back to our, you know, standard residential clients, which is the bread and butter of what we do. I love going into a home, and like I won't fully stage a home, but I will bring in like pillows and comforters and like the light decor staging to really make your house pop or clean it up or, you know, give it a neutral look, because that's just something I enjoy doing. And I think you have to figure out when you're looking at an investment potential, you either have to have the numbers to completely outsource certain things and not have your time sucked by those things, or it has to be something you really enjoy.
Sure.
So for me, like the design side, the staging side, you know, the aesthetic of things, whether it's building a house and planning finishes or listing prep, those are the things that I love about the business. It's like design and systems. Those are kind of my...
And I would tell you that like that can make or break whether a home sells for what you're asking for or not, right? The moment that you have, you know, and I think that's a conversation that you, and I'm just assuming, but I have to imagine you have this when you go to list a property and you know, everybody that lives in a home, they most of the time will set it up to their lifestyle and the way that they envision a home and live in a property may be entirely different than what somebody else would. And so I have to imagine there's an advice standpoint for you guys when you're going to choose a listing. You may have to like kind of coach them through how to change their home setup to make it best appealing for future buyers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The big things I tell people is like, you know, you have your standard things every realtor says. It's like windows clean, depersonalized, lights are on, everything's really bright and, you know, declutter. But it's also, you really want to see it from a standpoint of who's your competition. So if you are competing with new construction, with which almost everyone is at a certain price point, what are other people seeing in comparison to your house? They're seeing a perfectly staged vacant property that is designed to be, you know, beautiful and functional to anyone. There's nothing, you know, there's none of your personality in it. So I joke, but people say, okay, make it look like nobody lives here. It's kind of that joke of like, you're getting your home ready for the holidays, people are coming over, and it looks like nobody lives here. And that is the ideal. That's the standard. So I worked with clients on how do we back that down and make it realistic for your life? Like, especially if I have people where, you know, they have a newborn or they have 3 dogs, it's like, we'll make it work for your schedule, but I'm going to give you the ideal of like, this is what I ideally want. And this is what's going to get you the most money, because it really does affect things. Like if you have pet, you know, dishes and things out everywhere and people don't like dogs, they might buy your house, but they're going to pay less for it than if those things are put away and clean. So we have like systems and ideas for how to make that easiest for you to put your house in that best condition and best light. And then our job is, you know, the marketing, the pricing and everything else from there. But that's the 3 things that affect if your house is going to sell. It's condition, pricing, and marketing. And like we do the pricing and marketing, but you are ultimately responsible for what it's looking like and if you're willing to paint and do the things you need to do to, you know, bring it to that top level.
Talk about, so Q1 2026, compare the market of resale versus new construction. How do those two compare in today's market? And what would be your advice to a home buyer if they were to approach and want to compare the two?
The biggest difference is new construction has longer days on market because we had a lot of buyers buy up a lot of lots when there was a ton of demand, you know, through and right after COVID, and then they've been sitting on those lots and those holding costs for a while. So from a new construction standpoint, there's a big opportunity where, you know, a lot of builders that weren't giving anything off of list price or no concessions, no allowances, no promotions, they're doing those things now. They're really open to working with buyers. So there's a big opportunity on both sides. Like it's definitely a buyer's market right now. So the thing I tell our buyers is talk to us early. And I'm really big on whether you're buying a house, you know, next year right now or 3 years from now or 6 months from now. Everyone kind of has a, you know, 4 months early is kind of the minimum for me that you should get started. If you need to buy a house in 2 weeks, like, and close in 45 days, we can make it happen.
Of course.
But it's like talk early and let's get a feel for what's feasible, because that's one thing that people don't understand is sometimes people might have a house to sell and they're like, I'm going to give up this rate and I maybe can't buy because XYZ. Well, what they don't realize is the market's really shifted. They can get a lot more from the seller. You know, they can get a lot more that'll build the value or have instant equity on the home, repairs, things like that. And then also, you know, people don't think about maybe you rent that home. Maybe you keep it and rent it, and you're not, because they're afraid to lose that really good rate and that really good investment. But there's so many different options that, you know, circling back to your initial question, the comparison for me is not so much, you know, new construction versus resale, but it's just these homes have all been on the market longer than they want to be, and they're open to working with you, you know. So on the buy side, absolutely, you know, talk to your realtor, and there's probably really good opportunities out there. And on the sell side, it's being realistic from the get-go and not talking with an agent that's going to overpromise and underdeliver, because we're not in a seller's market right now, and we have to like account for that.
Right. I would agree with that for sure. And I've seen an uptick since the start of the year, you know, just in activity and interest. It doesn't mean that, you know, people are immediately jumping in and you know, writing offers right away. But I will tell you that, like, it does seem like beginning of 2026, people are just making the decision they want to buy and sell real estate right now.
Yes.
And I would tell you, and I think the stats would tell you also, that the sellers are outweighing the buyers. And so we need to figure out what's the way that we can, you know, make that ratio shift a little bit and get buyers back into the market. So, what would you tell a past client of yours that, you know, maybe they have a crazy low rate, 3% or below, and they're afraid of that? What's some strategies that you guys have used, or you know, is there ways that we can help, you know, ease that concept of moving, I guess, and kind of push them into the market again?
Yeah. I'm really big on, there's hypothetical ideas and strategies. So there's, them renting that property and what that looks like. And then we can look at pricing of them doing it themselves versus property management, you know, recommendations we have. And then there's also the mindset of sellers are motivated. You know, they might pay for a rate buy down if somebody doesn't want to rent a property or be a landlord. They might pay for a rate buy down. They might give you, you know, a great deal on the price of the house, that there's some instant equity there and there's some things that are enticing there. And then the other thing I say is just, I'm really big on running the numbers no matter what, because somebody that, you know, yes, the 3%ers are lower from COVID times and right before that, but then there's also people I talk to that they might have been in a home for 30 years and they've got a really good interest rate.
Sure.
But it's like, if you have X amount of, you know, equity in that home and you're going to put a really large chunk down on the next home, people only see like 2.5% interest rate versus 5.5 or 6, not, okay, I can put down $300,000 on a $400,000 house, and that, you know, that 5.5, 6.5% interest rate
doesn't matter as much,
right? Like it's on 100,000, not 400,000. So, and then I'm really big on, let's run the numbers. Like, I want the data in front of you, because we can say all these hypothetical things, but if you have the data in front of you, there's a lot of times where there's enough of a familial change, or there's enough of a pain point with what they're missing in their current house, that they're happy to spend $200 more a month if that's what the difference in payment is. So you've got to put numbers to it, and you've got to give them real data, and then they make that decision for themselves.
Yeah. And I think that you hit the nail on the head there. Is like, it's more about the monthly payment than it is the interest rate. And if they're comfortable with that and their goals align with, you know, because I think that that's a key point that people lose track of, is like, most of the time, if we're talking true primary residence real estate transactions, it's life that makes you move, not the investment itself. And so there's usually a reason behind why you're making that decision. Is it a job change? Is it a child you're having? Is it a downsizing because your kids have moved on? Is it, you know, there's infinite amount of resources as to why people make a true real estate transaction when it's a primary residence. Now, it's a different world if we're talking about investors, right? But if we're talking about where you live, it's the life that should impact the timing, not the market, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yep.
What, from a recent conversation standpoint, have you had any like unique buyer stories or anything that you think would be valuable for people to hear? Not to put you on the spot, but
yeah. No, I just think we've had a lot lately where people have been sitting on the fence a long time. Like, it's not a specific story, but there's a lot of excitement right now with, you know, rates coming down some and sellers being more motivated. So, I mean, the overall client story I have is just a lot of wins. Like the last 2 or 3 clients we've gotten under contract, they're getting, you know, the last one specifically, it was like $5,000 off price, which it was already priced really well, $7,000 in concessions and some other like big ticket repairs and things. Yeah. So I would say anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000+ of concessions, and then also a decent amount off price too. Yeah. So, you know, I like to joke I'm kind of a shark as a negotiator. I'm very nice to work with, and I get along well with other agents, but that's the biggest thing for our buyers is you want that next home, you want that next thing. And it's a lot of first-time buyers that are just scared of jumping in. And when do I jump in? Yep. So I think it's just talking through what that looks like and how you don't – there's like an opportunity cost right now in my mind of we had a really busy quarter 4. Like quarter 3 of last year was slow, which was a little odd. But quarter 4 was really busy, and the new year hits and everyone wants to look at buying. And so there's this opportunity where if you get in before spring market, in my opinion, you're going to have better pricing.
Agreed.
Because once spring market hits, everyone's thinking, I can charge a premium, especially and they're prepping their house really well right now. They're having those conversations. They want to get a premium, and they're not going to have as much ability mentally and emotionally to give you that deal. But if you're selling before spring market, you tend to want to give that deal a little more.
Yep.
So yeah, there's an opportunity cost, I think, if you don't look at moving right now, if it's something you're looking at for the year.
Yeah. I think that cost of waiting thing is one of the most like common calculations that I'm always doing is like, and obviously we don't always know that real estate appreciation is going to be linear up, right? There's going to be ebbs and flows, but I would tell you that like, if you are able to get in now and take advantage of some of those opportunities where you're getting the home for under list price, the temporary buy downs have been massive over the last few years. I mean, that can literally make you anywhere between $200 and $800 a month difference in regards to your payment. I talked to somebody this morning that literally we were going to save them like $500 a month when you pair a temporary buy down with a new construction tax abatement. Like it was a no-brainer for them to buy a house now. And when I first talked to them 30 days ago, they were really probably thinking April or May was when they wanted to move. Well, guess what? We wrote an offer yesterday.
Yeah.
Because we were able to identify like these numbers make more sense now. We can get it locked in for you. And we say this all the time, but if there's ever an opportunity to save you money down the road, if rates are your concern, we'll refinance you when the time comes. So I just think that the realization, and when you run the logistics, it can make sense sooner than later. Don't try to wait it out just because of like I'm concerned or worried about the nature of the market,
Yeah. And I would say too, on like a kudos to lenders that do the amount of research and running different scenarios that I know you do for clients is so everyone's so focused on the rate. And to me, it's like you might have a lender that their rate or their payment's slightly higher, but those people also I've seen a lot of the times they're the people that are going to actually call you when you need to refinance. And in the grand scheme of like your home ownership experience and wealth building experience, it's the people that slow down and they look at all the scenarios and they follow up and they do the things that save you money in the long run and protect you in the long run. And that's something, as a team too, I tried to make that a priority for all of our agents is I want, everyone asks, what's your ideal client? And a lot of people, it's demographic or it's first-time home buyers or I only want to sell luxury properties at X price point or above. And for us, it's like our ideal client is the people that they'll slow down, they'll meet with you, they want the full like breadth and depth of the experience and going through the consultation. We're not a speed to lead company. We're not somebody that wants to be the first one to open the door for you. Like we respond quickly, yes,
of course.
But it's more about what's your goals in the long run. And I'm a big believer that you get the most gain in equity and value and wealth that you can when you buy. So a lot of times people are thinking about, I've met with so many sellers where I'm like, I wish I could have helped you buy because you shouldn't have paid this for this house. Or you shouldn't have bought in this area if this is your long term. They want an investment property long term, but no one sat down and asked if they have interest in investing. And then they bought a condo or a townhome where you can't rent. Or they bought a single family home that really isn't going to work for rental because it's like there's a lot that are just kind of above a price point where it makes sense. And so if you have these conversations with people from day one of like, do you have investment, interest? Do you want to build wealth with real estate? Or do you just want a place that you can, make your own and paint the walls and never think about investing? Because those are two different clients. And happy to work with both, but it's like the people that they want you as an expert and they want like your 10 years of experience to help them build wealth. Like those are our people.
I always tell people that we built this process for a reason, right? Allow us to walk you through it. That's the best kind of situation. And almost every time when they allow us to do that process, right, at the end of the thing, they're willing to leave us a 5-star review because they got the process and the system that they deserve, right? And we put this 10 years that we've been doing this into work and we've learned the hard way on, we've probably had deals where we don't do buyer consultations and things like that because the clients just want to hurry up and do stuff. And most of the time, those are the deals that kind of go sideways, you know? And so if there's anything I've learned is the more that the client's willing to allow us to take them through the process, usually the better that they experience things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we've built this process for a reason so that we can kind of customize that to them. And at the end of the day, our process that we built is centered around the client's goals. And we want to identify those goals so we can help navigate this, because this isn't about us, right? It's about them and helping them achieve what they want.
Yeah, and to take it even further, I think that something people don't think about is when rates are high, everyone sees it as a negative, like this doom and gloom of, oh, they're in the sixes and they were in X percent.
Sure.
That's a really unique opportunity to like buy better, you know, buy at a lower price point, get better concessions, get all the repairs done you want done. And if you do all those things right, you know, I'm not someone that's like, buy a house you can't afford. You have to afford the payment.
Totally.
You have to feel good about it now. But yes, you can refinance later. And it's like, those are the people that have the best situation sometimes when they're going to sell 5-7 years from now. Whereas the people that bought at 2.5% interest rate, they probably overpaid for that house a little bit.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, it's like being able to slow down, we have the luxury of time in a market where the rates are a little higher. You have the time to do your research, pick someone you trust, be well informed, go slow with the process.
How many of those people in 2021 rushed into that decision?
Right.
Because they had to. They're like, well, I've offered 17 times and I've lost every one.
Yeah.
I'll just settle for this house.
Right.
Like that was a common conversation.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times like we could have written a lot more contracts and closed a lot more deals than we did in that time frame. But I would rather tell you not to buy a house and talk you out of a deal and have you as a lifelong client than have someone where, you know, this was the age of like you show a house and I would schedule 45 minutes in between every showing because 80% of the time you're writing an offer in the driveway to get an offer in on that property. And that's great for the people it made sense for. And I stand by every offer we've written. You know, everybody that has those rates, that's wonderful. They got those. Yep. But there's also people where, you know, they might have had to take on some things they weren't comfortable with, like older HVAC or whatever it may be. Totally. And it's like, I would much rather you wait for the right property in the right market than get in over your head just to get X rate. Yeah.
I think one of the bigger misses too is like when you think about, you know, when somebody's just trying to decide if they want to buy a house in today's market where rates are higher, right? I think one of the bigger misses is that it's maybe not necessarily that rate that's causing your uncomfort with that payment.
Right.
It's looking at your entire financial profile. You wouldn't believe the amount of pre-approvals that I look at, and like, this person makes a great living and they could totally support a $2,500 or a $3,000 mortgage payment if they didn't have a $1,500 car payment, and if they didn't have $20,000 in credit card debt, and if they didn't have $100,000 in student debt. How much easier would it be able to support that payment? And so it's evaluating before we take on debt. Are we confident with this decision, and is it bettering our situation?
Right.
So do we need this fancy ass car? Do we need to go to school for a degree that we're not going to use towards our career? And I'm not dogging school, because I think that if you use it in the right manner and you set yourself up for success, the career you get from that will compensate for the cost of school. But we've kind of skewed this perspective in America of taking on debt that doesn't better our situation. And so, and I'm even talking to myself, like, I don't need a new car.
Right.
You know, like my car works great, and it's just this skewed perspective. And I think that it would be easier to make a financial decision to buy a house in today's market if we were already in a good financial position. We'd saved more money and we'd handled and taken on debt in a way that allows us to be comfortable with the decisions we make in the future.
Absolutely. I've had so many people that someone said they couldn't get approved, and then they talk to somebody that knows how to work with debt consolidation and, you know, pay off XYZ or sell this car and get something more reasonable. And I mean, it makes all the difference. Totally. So, I mean, like I go back to like, I looked at real estate or financial advising, and it's like, in a way, you know, we're helping people look at their financials and what decisions am I making? How can I switch some things to have the house I want? Because a lot of people, if they could have the house they want, or, you know, a $900 truck payment, they're probably going to surpass the truck payment, right? So that's super important.
And I think, you know, real estate being that wealth builder is one thing that people miss on a lot. So an example, and I think I've shared this on other episodes, but like some of my repeat clients that bought in 2017, 2018, we've used their equity to pay off other debt they acquired.
Yep.
And their payment, despite their rate going up on their mortgage, their payments, their monthly budgets have decreased by like over $1,000 a month, and they get a bigger, nicer home.
Yeah.
Like there's ways that you can navigate that and use that to your advantage if you buy and own real estate for a long time, to help set up your financial profile in a better way. Yeah. So it's just all about creativity and at the end of the day, just looking at your monthly budget and understanding that we're here to help you guide that and not be, judgmental in any way about your situation. We want to make sure that everybody we interact with is set up for long-term success.
For sure.
So,
yeah.
Well, this has been good. I think that we've talked about a lot of great things. I always like to leave the floor open at the end. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave with the home buyers or anybody listening? Is there anything you think that we haven't touched on yet that you think is important?
I think just a little bit about like our team and our culture, and just mindset. So I'm very into being really intentional with the team. So every year we do a vision day where we have a word or two that we focus on for the year, and we really dive into reflecting on the prior year, looking forward. So one thing we're really big on is just personal integrity and personal responsibility. So I'm a big believer, if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. Yeah. And that's probably, if someone were to ask what's different about you or your team, that is at our core is say you do something, you do it, you lead with integrity, and that builds confidence within yourself, within your clients, partners, everything. So I think if you start there foundationally, that's a big thing. And same with clients. Like I really love with clients, if you say you're going to work on XYZ for a rapid rescore or whatever it may be, like I will help anyone under the sun help reach their goals. But it's just that personal accountability and that respect of if we say we're going to do something, we stand behind it. And I think that's really important for culture. Because we work hard, we play hard. We have a great team. We have really good culture. And that's something I'd be curious on your guys' end, because you guys have my favorite culture out of any lending group.
That's it's something that I will never ever take for granted. Like our core group, we've got 5 of us now. Actually, at the time of recording, Tucker is our new kid that's joining our squad here. But yeah, our culture's been really unique in a way that it's what makes us different, right? And at the end of the day, obviously all 5 of us have our own independent businesses. We're building each other up and we're motivating each other. And so when I hear Louis on the phones, it makes me want to hit the phones. And when I hear that he's implemented something new into his process to help better the client experience, then I implement it, right? And every Monday we have a sales call. We go over ways that we're helping our clients win, helping our agent partners win. Like we really are creating this conglomerate of just success, and we're all like-minded. We want to help people in the same way. And it goes beyond even our Des Moines office. We've got offices in Davenport. We've got offices in Chicago, South Carolina. And we really want to create this like national culture of like just really people that want to do things the right way by our clients and by our referral partners. And it's kind of irreplaceable. So if there's anything that I would tell you is like, if anybody's watching this and you're a real estate agent and you want to inquire about Kelsey's squad and the culture they've built, be sure to reach out to her. I'll link her information below. If you're a mortgage lender and you want to inquire about Key Mortgage Group and what we've built, we'd love to talk to you. But more importantly, if you're a client that looks to be, in the market into buying and selling real estate, we'd both love to work with you. We want to make sure that you guys get the service you deserve, and I'll give nothing but kudos to Kelsey and the way that her team does it. They're some of the best in the market. So this has been good. I appreciate your opportunity and your time to come in. I know how busy you are and how much you have on your plate. Thank you for being a valuable resource in the Des Moines market. For anybody watching, be sure to reach out to Kelsey. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode. We'll talk to you guys next time.